Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman, and welcome to 2018. Joining me once again on the podcast is Scott Schreiber. Scott, welcome.
Hey, well, glad to be back. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of all this, the best and worst movies of 2017, our year in review. And we're looking at the box office was down, the worst in about 20 years. It's about 2.7% down dollar-wise, but ticket sales were down almost 6% for the year. So less tickets are being sold, less people are going to the movies.
Which is just, it's almost contradictory in what you see when you see Beauty and the Beast breaking records, Star Wars breaking records, and it's just kind of, it makes you wonder, like, why? Why is it on the decline when you see all these movies making bank? And maybe it's just that there are less movies making bank. People are a lot more selective. They just want to go to the franchise movies. There's a lot of factors.
Right. We're going to cover the worst, and we're also going to cover the best. So I think we just jump into our worst movies of 2017.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
We're going to go from the best of the worst and work our way up to the worst.
Yeah, we're going to do a top 5 of the worst. We're not going to spend too much time. We don't want to tell you about all the bad movies you want to go see.
Yeah, some of them stunk so bad they'd really stink up the podcast, so we couldn't even talk about them. They were that bad.
Yeah.
And let us know at Geek Homeworld what you think of the episode. Check us out on YouTube. Let us know. And let us know what you think we should have included and what we left out. So let's start with our top 5. This one I was a little torn over. It didn't belong in my top 10.
No, it's definitely hard to put in your best of because there are a lot of problems with it.
It was a mess.
Hard for us to put it in the bottom, especially for me as a DC fan. But Justice League deserves. Sorry, but it does. It needs to at least be on the fringe there of the worst of the year.
I am all for the Snyder cut to come out, the dark version of it.
Yeah.
I am on board there. Sign me up. If you put that out, I know they were trying to go a different way with it. But bringing Josh Whedon in, nothing hating on Josh Whedon. I think he did well with what he did, but the cuts were just so, the theme, the tone, everything, you could tell that it was chopped up.
It felt clunky. You know, the main criticism of the early setup in Batman vs. Superman was that they just showed him in a file or whatever, there was no backstory. And they did make an attempt, they made an attempt to give each character some backstory, but again, it was like, here's 2 minutes of backstory. Okay, we know the character now.
So if Justice League comes on and I'm watching it, of course I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
But it ends up at number 5 is one of our worst of the year.
Yep, unfortunately. But let's see if they can correct things down the line.
Number 4, we're looking at a movie that was supposed to bring the entire Stephen King universe of books and movies and everything together. Dark Tower, Idris Elba.
Extremely disappointing. I had high hopes for this franchise, hoping that it could. Well, I say franchise because that was the hope, but maybe not so much anymore. I doubt they may not see a market for this going forward. It was possibly should have been R-rated if they had made it a little more grittier, darker. Maybe it could have done better. I don't know. It just felt like a young adult novel. McConaughey was, to me, was one of his worst performances. It came off very cartoonish. Maybe it was the idea, but it just didn't work for me, and that was very disappointing. So Stephen King, he had a pretty good year, but this wasn't part of his good year.
This was a misstep for him. Number 3, King Arthur. And
Ouch.
I don't even remember the rest of the title, and
Yeah,
I didn't see it.
Legend of the Sword, maybe. I don't remember.
You saw it.
I did. It was not good. Guy Ritchie, is hit or miss. Like Snatch is one of my favorite films of all time, but really he's not lived up to Snatch ever since. The Sherlock Holmes movies are pretty good, but he had a rough one with this one, and I just feel like the lead, Charlie Hunnam, I'm not sure people want him as a lead. It's like Sons of Anarchy, people like the show, but have openly criticized his performance. He's not a very good actor, in my opinion.
Wow.
I'm sorry to call somebody out like that. He's probably a better actor than I ever would be. But, he
got me convinced. So.
But I'm not convinced maybe it's just the material, because he was very good in The Lost City of Z this year. But for blockbusters like this, I guess the world's not ready for him.
And speaking of the world not ready for climate change, global warming, whatever you want to call it or not call it, Geostorm.
Ouch! Yeah, another
disappointment with Gerard Butler. There, he's a great actor, but this one stunk to high heaven. And
yeah, you can't fault the visual effects.
We're awesome,
but yeah,
it's no Independence Day, And it wasn't trying to be Independence Day. It just was too formulaic. I can never say that word. They changed it.
We'll go through this drill again.
Yeah.
Formulaic.
It was, whatever that. What he said.
Word of the week.
Word of the week. In a week movie, it was Geostorm. I don't even want to talk about it again. But would I watch it again? As like, if it's on TV, will I watch it? Will it be in probably my top 10 disaster movies? Most possibly, but I don't know.
I'll talk you out of it.
Yeah, talk me out of that storm. And speaking of just trash, and just please let something die if you can't improve upon it.
Yeah.
Our number 1 worst movie of 2017, Transformers: The Last Night. And let's hope this was the last one, but it's not.
It's not going to be there. And, maybe they can fix it, but God, I don't know.
They just need to go back to that cartoon from the 80s and put that on the big screen and just steal the script and do that in real life. Stick to that formula. I'm tired of Bumblebee not being able to talk. These things just don't make sense. This movie made no sense.
No, it made no sense. There was no script.
I fell for it. Yeah. And I shouldn't have. And I went and spent money on it.
Yes, but we knew what we were getting into when we saw it.
Yeah.
Hoping for the best. I mean, they have
Bayformers is not working. Kind of like Baywatch this year. That didn't work either.
No, but I think that was an easy consensus for us both as far as what was the worst of the year. We did a podcast saying as much when it came out. So it's pretty terrible movie.
Transformerless, yeah.
Transformerless.
It didn't transform me to anywhere. But it's starting to smell in this podcast, so I need to make this...
Let's start talking about some gems here.
Gems, definitely. And these ones came up smelling rosy. Do we start with the honorable mentions first?
There were a few that we felt really awful about not being in our top 10, but it was such a great year for movies.
Right. And there's some that may surprise you, and we try to look at the geeky nature of them. There are some that are kind of non-geeky that we may talk about in another episode.
Right, like movies like Dunkirk or Baby Driver, Lady Bird, the more... story-driven
films that don't rely
artistic,
on effects and
less that
superpowers,
but, still fantastic regardless. But there's a time and space for that. But
so
I think
this one we mulled over. Our first honorable mention. We've got 3 of them here, and it may surprise some of you because it may be in your top 10 and it was in my top 10, but it was closer to the bottom. It kept moving down the more we discussed our list and put our list together,
as far
Scott
as
and I.
its importance in the Marvel universe, we were arguing it between the
It's kind of a
like
filler
Spider-Man.
movie. It really
But
is.
we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's not in our top 10.
Yeah, it gets an honorable mention, and some people might go, what? But yeah.
No, and I think,
yeah.
as I was just saying, it's like we weigh the importance of its existence in the Marvel universe and Spider-Man and how they.
This is like
and
Iron
we'll
Man
touch
2.
on Spider-Man
Not
when we
that
talk
important.
about it. But right, it's not it's not as essential in the canon as I'd say Spider-Man is. So that's why it didn't make our list.
One of the things you said, you felt the music and it was forced, like they saw what songs they could get. I'll let you tell it.
It did. It felt a little forced to me. All the music. It almost felt like they got licensing to the music first, and then said, "Okay, we're going to write our script around these songs."
Right.
Which I understand is a big point of, especially Volume 1 with the mixtape that his mother gives him.
Right.
But it's not as relevant here in Volume 2, and it does feel forced.
Now, Kurt Russell, I thought did a splendid job as Ego the Living Planet, and I liked the movie, but yeah, there's some ones that just shine a little bit brighter, so that's why I didn't make it.
And hopefully when you see our top 10, you'll see why. Yeah.
Yeah. The next of our 3 honorable mentions for our top 10 best of 2017 movies is Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. The visual feast,
I saw it later on TV. I didn't see it in the theater, but I was I was impressed. Yeah. I was like, it has Samuel Jackson. I love Samuel Jackson. Like I said, he could read the phone book and I'd go watch it. And for some reason, I didn't get to see this in theaters. I thought it would be just too weird or something. I don't know, but I enjoyed it.
They did a good job.
It was good.
The cinematography's great. It's got a lot of homages, some throwbacks to like Apocalypse Now and those type movies.
Yes, it definitely does.
So, that regard, it really delivered, and I think that it's a nice stepping point to their next. I believe the next one's going to be Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yeah, and in the end where it shows and where they have Mothra and the little cave paintings or whatever.
Yes, they foretell the future there of the MonsterVerse.
And just so some of our listeners know, Apocalypse Now is not an X-Men movie.
It's not.
But that would be an interesting concept.
The horror
of it all. And our third honorable mention is Lego Batman.
Yeah, one of the most fun movies of the year.
Totally loved it. Yeah.
Great.
But it wasn't enough to make it in our top 10.
Nope,
so
not quite.
Here's one that kind of surprised me. I went in not really expecting much. But our number 10 in our top 10 best was Atomic Blonde.
Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron and James McAvoy.
And I will give her an honorable mention for probably best villain in the Fast and Furious 8 or whatever it was. She played a delicious villain.
If you say so. I haven't seen Fast 8 yet.
It's just so over the top. The next one I think is in space. It's just getting ridiculous now, but I'll probably go see it. But Atomic Blonde, number 10 of our top 10, I like the fact it felt very much in the timeline of the Berlin Wall falling and her being this agent. And
the 80s, the set to the fantastic 80s soundtrack, the fight scenes, the choreography's amazing.
Yeah. We'll never listen to Father Figure by George Michael again the same way.
Absolutely not. Fantastic.
In fact, when I was watching it and they skipped a line to another part of the song, I was like, that's not how that goes.
Well, editing.
Yeah, I know it's editing. It's editing. It's magic.
But yeah, and I had actually kind of forgotten that this was a graphic novel.
True.
Before. And so it's they did a great job adapting it. To me, it felt a lot like John Wick. I believe the stunt choreographer from that directed this one, or the same director. There's a connection somehow there between the two, and so it has a very similar look. The stunts are amazing. Go see it if you haven't already. It's fantastic.
Now, our number 9 on the list is, and this is where it got hard because this one, I had it much higher on the list, and when we put our list together to try to come up with one consensus, this one kept getting pushed down. It didn't get pushed off the list.
No, it dropped for me, and it's Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah. And I think they finally got Spider-Man right. Not to take anything away from Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, but
And
Tom Holland did a great job.
He did, and that's why I conceded this to you. You changed my mind on this. It was kind of lower on my list, but it's really important for the Marvel Universe that they got it right. They got a teenage, they made him the age he's supposed to be.
And thank you for not doing an origin story of Spider-Man.
Right.
Because they all are, basically. We get it. They can do that in Homecoming, too, but Homecoming, the idea that Spider-Man was, I think the Homecoming idea, of course, high school and all, they put an actor at the right age for Peter Parker.
Exactly.
And it works. Tom Holland is a good actor there. He riffs off really good of Iron Man. Does this film have problems? Yeah, it does. But overall, it was a fun, refreshing take on Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it was nice to see Keaton be a villain.
What a delicious villain.
Yeah.
Delicious? I don't know.
Delicious.
Delicious. No, but Keaton plays as good of a hero as he is as Batman. He is just wonderful as a villain in this.
Yeah, it kind of reminded you as a little bit of the glint in his eye and how much fun he had with Beetlejuice.
Yes.
A little bit. Not quite as great as that performance, but...
I'm not going to say it, so we say that Beetlejuice...
Oh, don't do it.
3 times.
All right, so what's number 8?
Number 8 is It.
It. Yeah.
Stephen King. This is where they hit a home run. Now, you had a little bit of problem with it being a remake,
Well, I wouldn't say a problem, but when I'm ranking movies, I certainly take into the originality factor. So
this movie pulled in. It was number 6 for the year on the box office with about 327,
which is staggering.
Was staggering.
I couldn't imagine it was made for more than 25 million, and so that is a staggering number. And maybe I'm off on that on the budget, but it again. I want movies to be original, right. So the script was there for them already. But they made an incredible update. If you go back and watch the original, the effects are cheesy, the acting is bad, it's made for TV. But this is a modern-day update, and it delivers. It is scary. That opening scene
when they ripped,
is perfect.
It is perfect. Now, when they ripped his arm off, and, it was so much part of our culture this year. They had Kellyanne Conley.
Oh, the Saturday Night Live sketch.
In the sewer, and Anderson Cooper. He's
perfect. Oh, God.
That was one of the best skits making fun of this movie. But
absolutely,
that movie was just everywhere, and what a success it is. And it's nice to see a Stephen King property do well. Now, Johnny Depp had a misstep, I think, with Pirates of the Caribbean. I didn't even bother to watch it this year. I'm burnt out on it. But he starred in The Secret Window. To me, is still one of my all-time favorite Stephen King movies. And if you've not seen The Secret Window, you should. I always tell people they should watch that.
And is that... Did Roman Polanski do that one, or is that...
No.
The Ninth Gate? I don't know. He did a scary movie with Depp, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But
anyway, so it delivered. It really... And I can't say it again, but it delivered. And it's number 8 on our list for the year of our top 10 best movies of 2017. Now, this one, we argued. Well, we didn't argue. We just were going back and forth on the list. And you would put this a little higher than I would, but because of what's ahead of it, we kind of came to a consensus that this is where this particular film landed.
I'm not upset with it being here as long as it's on the list. I thought it War for the Planet of the Apes, number 7. It is a fantastic ending to this trilogy. I thought it was just, they couldn't have done it better. The saga of Caesar is complete, and Andy Serkis
deserves an Oscar nod.
There should be a big push for him to get an Oscar nomination. There should be.
War for the Planet of the Apes, number 7. A brilliant movie, and it was heartbreaking. And this is the one where Woody Harrelson surprised us. He actually did a really good job. I was really more surprised at his performance than I was Andy Serkis, because Andy Serkis, for me, always delivers, and Andy Serkis really delivered on this one.
I've been a believer in Woody for for quite a few years. I think that,
back in Toy Story and no.
yes, that's what I meant. No, like, in his past, he's had exceptional performances. Natural Born Killers, The Messenger.
Yes.
He's had some really solid performances, but it seems like this was his year to be a great supporting actor. He had this performance here in War of the Planet of the Apes. He had another solid turn in the Glass Castle, and he was in something else recently. He's had 3 billboards. He was in 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. So he's got these 3 great supporting actor performances that I'll push for him to be, considered this year. And but yeah, he was great in this. But you can't. The underlying thing with War for the Planet of the Apes is just a nice closure to the story, and it
was. Yeah.
But I also feel like if they wanted to do it down the line, they still could. But I was actually Caesar's
surprised to see
complete.
him die, but it was beautiful how he died.
Yes, and
it was necessary.
It also you can speculate, did he? That's the thing too. Yeah. That's where I enjoy that to where I'm happy with that ending, because you don't necessarily see him go, but you can assume it and be happy with that, and it's a happy ending.
Right.
But they could also come back and continue this story
with it.
But I think that for me, I believe Caesar's story is done and should be done, and it makes this movie all the more beautiful.
I don't know where they're going from here, or if they do, or if somebody picks up the mantle, but hopefully they don't turn it into 10 or 12 movies and, destroy the genius that was this trilogy,
Sure.
Number 6 on our list, and this one kind of pushed Planet of the Apes a little bit down the list, the movie Split. And I did not see it in the theater. There was a lot I didn't get to the actual theater. I was out making movies this year.
Yeah.
And so I got to see it, and I enjoyed it. I thought that it was a brilliant performance.
Right. And I think, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, we're going to talk about it. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been out for nearly a year, so we're going to talk about it. That there's the connection to Unbreakable. And that's what makes
that Easter egg in the end. Yeah, I love that with Bruce Willis.
The movie's already fantastic, and then you get that ending with Bruce Willis,
and we know
sitting there seeing the report about Glass, and so you have this connection to Unbreakable. You now know that the next movie they're going to do is Glass
with Samuel Jackson. Right. So I love that, and I'm happy for Shyamalan, because there was a while Shyamalan, his movies were like all that, and they would shock you. They were like the Cloverfields of our time, kind of like that. And then his movies just got bad. And now you like The Happening. I thought The Happening was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
I am gonna defend Shyamalan. I'm one of those guys that defends.
I lost faith.
All of his
I will admit
movies.
I lost faith in Shyamalan, but I'm back. And Split definitely brought me back. And
that's the importance of this movie, because I think it's important to have a filmmaker like Shyamalan.
And he's doing it. He's smart now, because they're not giving him big budgets on these things. He's doing what movies like Get Out, thank you, which is also a good movie. Yes, he's taking that smaller budget, and his movies are doing well, are blowing out to an extent. And even beyond box office doesn't always tell you how good a movie is, but James McAvoy, he rolled through these characters almost seamlessly.
Yeah.
And
so he shows up twice here. He's in Atomic Blonde and Split. How about that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's correct.
And hell, if there was an X-Men movie, he would have been on here 3. Well, there was an X-Men movie, but we'll talk about that one a little bit.
Okay.
Getting ahead of ourselves there. But what's number 5? Bud?
Number 5 got pushed up and down the list a little bit. Everything got pushed up and down the list. And when we put them together, this one, it was an important movie. This was the year of the woman director. This was the year of Wonder Woman, finally. And there's talks for Wonder Woman 2. That's definitely a go. That maybe they'll try to bring Linda Carter in, which would be great for fanboys like me, and
Well, and I think that because of the year we've had in the social climate that we have
in Hollywood and all.
this could be the number one movie of the year. But as far as script and entertaining and everything, you know, that's why it takes a little bit of a hit for me. The 3D was so dark when I saw it. That's why it kind of got bumped down my list. And that's not necessarily the filmmaker's fault. That's the
What's
the
interesting
theater.
is when I saw it in 3D, it blew me away. And I think I went in with a lot of hype and blinders on, because when we saw it in 2D and I kind of felt let down a little bit, I was able to pick parts of the movie apart.
Yeah.
You know, like basically her little troop of friends. This basically is Captain America story. You know, it's just set in a different war, different time. Yep. You know, and what did Wonder Woman do? Did she sit out the whole thing with World War II and Hitler and all that? And, you know, they've got to explain that at some point, and maybe we'll get that explanation between that and Justice League. And it worried me because Wonder Woman was such a runaway success. What would Wonder Woman be like in Justice League? And at least in Justice League, she still held her own.
Sure.
But she did show that lack of leadership, which might explain why she kind of laid low for, I don't know, 50, 60, whatever, 80 years. I don't know how many years between wars. So it was interesting to see Gal Gadot. Her performance is wonderful. She's a great actress.
If there's anything that I know that comes from this, we know that Gal Gadot is a star.
Right.
And that Patty Jenkins is an excellent director.
Right.
And that
some people try to take that credit away from her and kind of say, well, you know, there are other people involved in the production, but give the lady her due.
Would they say that about Taika Waititi on Thor? Or,
No, they wouldn't.
So, you know, I think that's, you know, this is an extremely important film because of those factors.
Right. And, you know, I could see Patty Jenkins getting a nomination.
Sure.
At least for director.
It's possible.
You know, it's possible at the Oscars. We'll be talking more in future episodes as we get closer to the Oscars. We're going to do some special things in the podcast, and especially Scott here. He's going to give us a hand with that, and we'll talk more about that. But one of the last things I want to say about number 5 on our list, Wonder Woman, is that the fanboy in me got goosebumps. The hairs on my arm stood up when she was in her full outfit with the shield, and then she steps onto that battlefield. That was a Christopher Reeve Superman moment. That was, you know, wow. And that was, but one thing I did not like was the gentleman who played Ares. Totally unbelievable as him being the god of war, you know, Ares. And that's, you know, we've talked about that in previous episodes. You can listen to our Wonder Woman episodes that we have back in the podcast there. But all in all, number 5 on our list. So it cracked the top 5.
Yeah, and you know, you can't have a 2017 list without Wonder Woman being on it.
Right. You can't ignore
that
it.
Important of a film this year.
Exactly. Now, number 4 is a lot higher than when we averaged it out. Is amazing how high this came out on the list.
Because there was a consensus on where it was on our list. Like with Split, I had mine higher, you had yours lower.
Right.
You know, so and the same with some other ones. But with this, we both had them basically in the same spot, and it turns out to be our number 4, and that's Thor Ragnarok.
And I wanted to see Hulk and Thor battle. I knew from the beginning the tone change that they did, which was basically kind of a riff off of Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, it was more in that flavor.
You can call that stealing the tone, but it's important. Like, it needed it.
Right.
The Thor franchise needed a change.
It did.
And Guardians worked so well. Guardians' tone worked so well. They said, okay, that's what we need to do, and they did it, and it worked, and it's one of the best films of the year. And it shows that, you know,
we need different directors with different visions for
absolutely
these different Marvel properties. And this, had we had another Lost World, which, you know, was the second Thor movie, we wouldn't even be talking about the movie as much now. It might be one of our worst. Who knows? There could be a fourth. I can't say it. There could be a fourth Thor movie, but we don't know. It depends what happens within Infinity War. But yeah, Thor Ragnarok just was fun. And
oh my God.
I don't know if you've seen the episode. If nobody out there has seen the episode excuse me, if was the last year, 2016, 2017, the Ghostbusters movie. And I know a lot of people groaning there when I say that, but the all-female Ghostbusters that we had, the end credits with Chris Hemsworth.
Oh yeah,
Were hilarious. He is so hilarious, and he got to show that side of Thor, and there were some movies, like there's another movie I'm going to mention later and I'm going to talk about, where I'm not sure if the humor worked in it, and you know what I'm talking about, but
Absolutely.
they don't know yet. But anyway, a little foreshadowing there, but the humor in here worked. Sometimes it was a little ridiculous, a little over the top, but I accepted it, that visually it was over the top, and hella, what a great performance there for that character.
Yeah, I mean,
Kate Blanchett.
we're just now we're talking about how good this movie is, and you kind of forget that you've got one of the greatest actresses ever. Now within
the first
the
female
Marvel
villain
universe,
Yeah.
as the first female.
So once again,
villain.
the year of the woman,
absolutely.
and more power to them. Now we get into the thick of it. This is
our top three. There was a consensus as far as what the three were, just not in the right order.
right? And it was hard for me. This was very difficult for both of us. And number 3 is Logan,
Which is hard to say that. Wow, Logan is number 3. How do you have it at number 3? Well, it's because there's some great movies this year,
right?
But because Logan,
But some people would say originally, if you said Logan before you saw the movie, you're like,
Right.
how could it be so high? But once they saw the movie, you'd understand this transcends.
especially after some of the Wolverine standalone.
Yeah. If you look
movies.
back at like Origins, they look pretty silly compared to Logan, and it's the most X-Men movie of the X-Men movies. This was basically a Western.
It's a Western.
So,
And it's
but it
so
works.
well done.
But that shows how Marvel's saying, okay, we've got the humor with Guardians, we've got the R rating and the humor with Deadpool. We reinvented Thor basically and made him a big hit this year. And look what we did with Logan. They went a total different way with it, and it brings to an end Hugh Jackman's wonderful portrayal of playing Logan.
And that's going to be the lasting effect of this film, because it's the end of the Jackman Wolverine. And they just did it so poignantly. They while also passing the torch.
Yeah.
There has to be a Laura movie. There has to be.
Well, now with the 20th
Daphne
century
King.
buying out, being taken over by Disney, that puts that in the question. The X2,
It does,
whatever she was, but
not
X2.
Now they have Disney money,
Yeah,
which has been good for some franchises. Star Wars,
but sometimes you can throw money at something, and if it stinks, it
Understood.
still stinks. It's just expensive poop. But
but I don't. There are a lot of, the way a movie ends should leave a lasting effect with you. And out of all the endings of all the movies this year, I think Logan has the most perfect ending. And and as I sit here and talk about it, man, I want to push it up the list. But and
that's how I'm going to feel about the next one too. But like where Laura turns the cross on his grave and makes it an X.
Yeah,
and I'm
and
like,
it's
it's just a subtle things.
Right, it's
but
such a simple thing, but it's moving.
in the
and it
movie,
works.
the Wolverine, the foreshadowing, and I forgot the character's name, but she said, "You're going to die holding your heart in your hands," and people thought that was a literal thing and didn't think much about it, and they're like, okay, we put that in the back of our brains. So he literally was holding Laura when he died, or holding her hand. So this is our stepping off point for New Mutants, whatever mutants, or wherever the X-Men universe goes now. And now the X-Men universe conceivably can go up against the Avengers. So it's open. The world is a wide open canvas now. Disney owns it all. Yep. So we could have, who knows.
Yeah, exactly.
But Logan was just a masterpiece. If Hugh Jackman gets, you think he could get a Best Actor nomination? Or maybe Golden Globe at least?
Well, he's nominated for a Golden Globe for The Greatest Showman, but he was not nominated for Logan. So, and he hasn't been nominated for any other of the precursors.
Right.
So I don't see it happening. If he's going to be nominated, it'll probably be for The Greatest Showman, but I think he's deserving for both. He will more than likely be in my top 5 of the year, for both performances. It's hard for me to say, which is better. They're so diverse.
Right.
So he's certainly in the conversation for Best Actor of the Year, but that category is always so crowded.
Yeah.
That it'll be tough. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see him and Patrick Stewart get nominations.
Yeah,
and
that's
I think
true.
that Patrick Stewart's nomination would be more realistic than Jackman, just because lead actor is usually a little more tightly contested, more people, more.
That's
roles.
an interesting point.
So, but I think they're deserving. I think that Jackman, I used to really not like him, but he's really grown on me. He's gotten better as an actor.
Well, I don't think that he would have deserved any kind of nominations for anything X-Men he's done.
Nothing.
But
X-Men. Probably his greatest performance up to this point was for Les Mis, and in my opinion,
some people cringe at that. With some of the singing. I don't know.
People cringe at Russell Crowe, not Hugh Jackman.
They definitely cringe at Russell Crowe. Yeah,
but. Anyway, we're going off on this because we love this movie, but let's move on to our number 2, which I had at number 1, but I conceded because these movies are so great. It's fine.
Yeah,
but
this is the most. Yeah, it hurts. I hurt myself,
but
today.
It's fine. Like I can concede this. You are SavageTechman. I will concede. Number 2 is Blade Runner 2049.
The most, and I'm upset with every one of you out there. I am upset that you did not go out and support this movie.
Yeah.
It was not
93 million, I think, 91 million.
That should be a 2 in front of that, or at least a 3.
Yes, and I think because it was a sequel to a 30-year-old film.
I know, and
people were like,
this generation didn't get it.
Yeah, I have to go see the first one, and it's a hassle.
And I borrowed your Blade Runner Ultimate Edition, whatever, director's cut, and I appreciate the pacing of the movie by watching the original over again.
It's
still very good. It's this movie, Blade Runner 2049, followed in that vein, and visually. Probably one of the most visually stunning, that and my number 1 movie, the visually stunning movies of the year.
Yeah,
We saw it in IMAX. It was 2D. It wasn't in 3D, right?
Right.
It didn't need it.
No, it was not necessary.
We were literally in the back of the theater watching it, and I remember the sound design for Blade Runner 2049 was just spectacular, and it should get nominations for visuals, definitely, but it should get something for sound because the sound, I could see the screen shaking at one point. And it's not just the bass, but just the whole design of the sound was just very encompassing, and it was almost another character in this movie for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The look and the feel is a major character, and if we're probably 2 months from the Oscars, nominations haven't even coming out.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and bet the house.
Blade Runner.
Bet my new car on Blade Runner winning production design. There's nothing that should beat Blade Runner's production design.
Yeah, I'm gonna slightly agree with that. My number 1 might give it a run for its money just because it's gotten it before.
I understand that, but this
I will go with you on this one. I would choose this.
There's nothing more gorgeous
visually
this year. There's nothing more
than Blade Runner. And who knew it rained so much in California?
Well, it's the dystopian future.
Exactly.
Of course it rains every day.
And this movie kept me guessing. You probably got the twist in it quicker than I did on Blade Runner. And it was a solid, 2.5, almost 3 hour movie.
Yeah, it was long. It was 2.5.
And it was not like your blockbuster movie. It was harder to a film that long is harder to put in as many screens. Just logistics. But the fact that people didn't go out and support this film enough, this is going to become a cult classic just like Blade Runner became. You know, it grew over time on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and then you get the director's cut. Well, we definitely got the director's cut on this, and maybe there'll be another cut. It's 12 hours long. I don't know. But I feel like it was just really wonderful what we got to see on Blade Runner 2049 because it encompassed everything. It was so atmospheric. I felt like I was literally part of that world, and being in the IMAX experience of it made it all the better. You know, had I seen it in a regular theater, I think I still would have had that same feeling, but IMAX really enhanced this movie. And Harrison Ford, great job in this one.
Yeah, you know, as much as the visuals, the production design are going to get all the attention, don't forget about these great performances. Ryan Gosling was great. Harrison Ford is great. Anna de Armas, who plays the girlfriend experience, she's fantastic in it. Robin Wright, who else is in it? Lenny James, Morgan from Walking Dead has a little role. Dave Bautista has one of the best cameos of the year. I liked his performance. He was annoying, actually, to me in Guardians, too. Yeah.
I mean, with the jokes about Mantis, I just thought was over the line, and I get why he did it. Yeah, but this was his best performance of the year for me. And I totally love this movie, and I didn't get to see it again. I wanted to, but just logistics and...
It's coming out on DVD really soon.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
This is something I would want to own in 4K, 8K, whatever, 400K. I don't know.
Absolutely.
So number 2 for the year, hotly contested. Your number 1, but overall,
it's fine. I can live with our consensus number 1 because it's a great transition. It's a great, fantastic installment. Go for it. What is number 1, Ed?
Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. Yeah, and you're like, I bet you I can guess your top 10. And what's interesting is 8 of our top 10 best movies we agreed on.
We both came in with our own top 10 as far
totally
as
separate.
Like the geeky kind of movies, sci-fi, and the superheroes, and we came up with this with our own to come in, and then we combined for our consensus. 8 of our top 10 were the same.
They were just in a different order, a few of them, but
so we had to kind of fight on those last 2 a little bit to round it out.
I conceded a little bit, and you did, and it all works out. But yeah, number 1 for me was Star Wars. I've seen it 4 times.
That's it.
2018, early 2018, when we're recording this, and yeah, I love the movie. The first 2 times I came out of it, I was upset. If obviously you've seen it by now, but I was telling my wife Cheryl, she's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, Luke Skywalker died. You don't understand. I've had a death in the family, and I was like, I took it so personally. This is a childhood hero of mine, Luke Skywalker.
I get that completely. I really do, and I guess it didn't affect me that way as much as because I know, well, and obviously you know too. You know more than I do. But that they can come back, and like the Yoda does, or Ben, or
Luke had cut himself off from the Force, and once he reconnected, then he was going to burn the temple down.
Yeah,
and then here comes Yoda, and that's when I jumped out of the seat and screamed when I saw those ears pan across.
That was my
screen.
favorite part of the movie.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Now some people complain, but this is not a perfect movie. I mean, what Rian Johnson, he wrote and directed this. And he basically, some of the things I've saw, they said it's a middle finger to J.J. Abrams, what he did in The Force Awakens, which basically was a kind of retread of Episode 4, New Hope.
He did do a lot of erasing of what Abrams did, didn't he?
They killed Snoke. That pissed me off. I want him to be Darth Plagueis somehow, and who knows? He
still could be. I just, you can't, when
there
you
were
have
so many things that,
as you call it, Leia's Mary Poppins moment, you don't know.
Oh, Mary Poppins, man, is he cool?
We really don't know what's possible and what they can do.
Well, we had no basis for Leia using the Force that way, but that doesn't mean she couldn't.
Sure,
but it looked cheesy. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. I mean, she should have. I think you have to suspend your belief because she should have immediately frozen up, kind of like Yondu did in Guardians
Sure.
2, you know.
But
and they'll always be compared, but I don't know.
it doesn't diminish the film. I
the
thought
film is beautiful.
I didn't have that reaction to Leia's Poppins moment. I thought it was wonderful. You know,
Well, they did bait us when we know
my criticism of the film, and it's very minimal, is there's a little bit of bad dialogue, a little bit of bad acting,
right.
But that's not what these movies are about. That's
They're the spectacle. They're the hope and the joy, and I'm glad they're not putting Leia in Episode 9 digitally. I'm glad they left that alone.
Right. And it's clear that they're transitioning from the old guard to the new. And I think that was very evident in this. I loved the way they did it. I think it's very smart. Let's move to the future.
I originally, though, I get that. I originally thought of the plot of Finn and Rose. I guess
a little unnecessary. Yeah,
that whole trip was kind of unnecessary, but we've seen that in other movies. This movie is a little bit like Empire Strikes Back, but the humor, I think, bothered more people, more diehard Star Wars fans than anything else. Some people are calling this the worst movie.
I don't understand that because there was always
canon.
That's silly. Like, I don't understand that at all. Like, there's always been a little bit of humor, especially with Han Solo.
And Poe was taking the role of Han Solo for the humor part of this.
Absolutely. And you tell me C-3PO and R2-D2 aren't supposed to be humor?
Right.
In the old ones?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, there's humor throughout, so I don't understand
my
that.
third watching of this, and I'll expand on this some more because I haven't done a full episode. I really couldn't bring myself around to doing an episode yet. I was so torn about The Last Jedi because I loved it. Star Wars is like cold pizza. It's still, even when it's cold, it's still good,
Right.
But I had some fundamental flaws with this, but the more I watched it, more times I watched it, the better off I got. I got the whole spiritualness of it and how Luke became one with the Force, and he went peaceful and purposeful, as Rey said in the movie. And so I'm accepting it more. But this movie, in the writing of Rian Johnson, he took Star Wars. It could have been very much Empire Strikes Back, the new class or whatever, and he shook it up and he kept throwing stuff at you that you didn't expect. Snoke getting chopped in half. You didn't expect that.
While there are a lot of these obvious parallels, he's still not doing the obvious and just rewriting the same story.
And he's propelling it. And honestly, this could have been the Episode 9 of this is how the whole Skywalker part of thing, it could have ended with this movie if they didn't do Episode 9, and I think it would have been a perfect ending, actually, but yes, I want more. Of course I want Episode 9.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is I like that it leaves you wanting more. If you don't know all the backstory, if you've not watched the animated series, if you haven't done your research, I know a lot of stuff.
There's expanded universe that doesn't count anymore. That's not canon, and I'm upset about some of that.
Here's my thought as far as that. There are little things like the crystal foxes. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really tell you what they are and why they are, but I know there's got to be a reasoning for that, or we're going to find that out in the next one if we have to. I would assume there'd be an explanation of that. They touched on it a little bit, but obviously they were key on them finding escape, or finding.
Yeah, and then Luke Skywalker buying them time, him force projecting across the galaxy. I mean, that was incredible.
Right.
That was amazing in itself.
And there are little hints at it.
That I didn't see. I didn't see the first time.
Watched them again, and you see it.
The salt, the red salt. I didn't see it.
No footprints.
Cheryl saw it first time. Yeah. I didn't see it. And then I've kind of felt like that was a bit of a cop-out for him not to physically be there. But the more I watched it, then I thought it makes sense.
Because he fully embraced the Force again.
Right. He finally made his way back home. I would have liked to see, now it makes me want to see Rogue One, that wonderful scene with Vader at the end of Rogue One going through and just chopping people up with his lightsaber makes me want to see a Darth Vader standalone movie.
And we were talking about that now that would have to be an obvious standalone picture.
Right.
Wouldn't it? Like you've got your own Rogue One, which was a great little side story. It filled the holes of the some major plot holes.
Well, just a small little question. Just how did they get the plans? And then boom, they turned into a movie that was the number one movie of 2016. And then amazing.
So then you've got this standalone Han Solo that's gonna hopefully they fix.
Well, Ron Howard's coming there. I heard it was a disaster.
Yeah, all
and
the word
I hope
on
that
the set is that they've had real issues, but
because it was too comedic, and they let the writers go. They had the lead actor needed acting lessons supposedly on set,
wow. Okay.
and
I didn't hear that.
but Rogue One had similar problems. There were a lot of things in the trailer for Rogue One that didn't make it to the actual film. But back to Last Jedi.
I guess the point. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I'm sorry because I haven't talked about this, so I could, or at least Last Jedi, after seeing it. So that's what I'm trying to shut this down now. but overall, visually, I think we can agree. As much as Blade Runner, as much as. Well, maybe not as much as Blade Runner for you, but I thought it was a beautiful movie. I think it was pristine.
I love what's the planet
visuals.
with the salt on the surface. Do you remember the name of the planet? I stumped you.
Cato Kalin.
Yes, you're right. It is Cato Kalin.
No, that's not it.
No, but anyway, that visual of the red dirt kicking up. I mean, that is so gorgeous. Like the battle sequences are incredible. The pacing of this film, again, it's the longest Star Wars movie yet.
Yeah,
but it didn't feel like it to me.
It didn't feel like it.
It felt like action.
That's how Blade Runner was. 2049. I'm like, I would have sat if my kidneys could have held out, I would have sat another hour and watched more Blade Runner 2049.
But I thought they treated the legend of this franchise right, in my opinion.
Well, some people are saying, some diehard fans about how the females were, notice the females were the smart ones in this film. Maybe we're being a little politically correct.
Yeah, and
we're being more inclusive. We're definitely got more cultures going.
The white men were either villains
or stupid.
Or
get your head out of your cockpit. But that was an important lesson for Poe to become a leader. And like in the end where Leia, when he's following the little ice, whatever he's called, ice doggy or whatever.
I like Crystal Fox.
Yeah, Crystal Fox. Ooh, there you go. That's my club name now. So, when they were doing that, she's like, "Well, why are you looking at me? Follow him." And then Leia smirks, and
that's a big spine of this movie too. Is Poe becoming the leader?
He is.
It's the passing of the torch. That's the whole point of Episode 8 is the passing of the torch. And whether you like it or not, that's what has to happen in this franchise.
Right.
You have to move to the future. And I thought that they did a great job doing that with Luke, moving on. With Leia, obviously they're going to have to deal with that somehow off screen.
How?
But they're going to have to.
I have no idea. If I were brought in to write it, I wouldn't even know where to start.
It would be hard to pick right up after the events right after the movie ends. You couldn't do that. I think you would have to fast forward 5-10 years. I think you have to go further into the future now. And
J.J. Abrams, them bringing him back is interesting. Some people were against that. Now that they've seen the movie, some people are happy, the ones that disagree. And I think Abrams is going to do a good job. Lay off the lens flare. And no lens flare allowed. Thank you.
# no lens flare.
Exactly. # no lens flare. And I think he's going to wrap it up nicely. And it's going to be sad when it wraps up, but hopefully it'll be joyful. But what this movie showed us, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like you say that you're wrapping up, you're assuming 9's it.
9 is it for the Skywalker.
Okay.
They've said that. And Rian Johnson has been given a trilogy, a standalone at the other side of the universe, where he's going to do a whole trilogy. So just off of Last Jedi, he's got 3 movies he can write and direct that can explore many possibilities. And one of the universal things I was going to say about this movie is that you don't need the legend of Luke Skywalker. It was about tearing legends down and saying we're all heroes, we're all legends. We all can use the Force. We all can be part of that Force. Right. And to put the Force, just to say it belongs to the Jedi or belongs to the Sith, is very arrogant. You know, it doesn't belong to you.
Or just to Luke.
Yeah, right.
And because I think that's the big thing is we've got to be okay with Luke moving on. You know, and then Rey or whoever it's going to be stepping up. We have to be, you know, accepting of that. I am. I think Rey's a great lead. I think she's fantastic.
She's really, really done well. And I was a little upset how she was able to fly the Millennium Falcon in Force Awakens. You know, she could do all this stuff with ease, which is kind of Anakin's story in Episode 1.
But yes, it is, and but she's also a survivor. Like when we meet her, she's a loner. She's a survivor. She's a junker.
Questions.
So we don't know how much. Like if you're out there on your own, you know, you probably know how to do all these things.
Well, the thing is, she was able to tap into Force, and we'll find out her parentage. But we actually, in this one, they said her parentage was just some nobodies.
Do you believe that?
I think it's a little misdirection. The dark side always lies to you.
It can't be that easy, can it?
Well, I don't know. Some people are like, just on face value, they said that's one of the middle fingers to J.J. Abrams from Rian Johnson.
Yeah,
you know,
and it could be, hey, I'm going to
what do you do with it now, you know?
Well, but it could be simple to just say, oh, that's just what they were.
But that's brave.
You were told.
For a writer and director, that's the choices he made were brave. And if that's not a heroic Jedi, then I don't know what is. But, you know, sometimes you have to tear down the temples as it were, as they were going to burn it down. And then Yoda just shows up and flicks some lightning. Who knew you could do that? A Force Ghost has never done that. And then boom, and then he laughs about it. And some people are like, well, Yoda's supposed to be more serious. Life isn't always that serious. Sometimes, you know, you've got to allow the humor in your life. You've got to see the beauty in everything.
Why? Okay, we're coming back to this again.
Okay.
Why are people so upset about a little humor in life? And do they not remember Yoda wasn't all serious?
In The Empire Strikes Back, he starts out as, that was one of the great reveals, because all of a sudden he just straightens up and he goes, you know, and you find out he's Yoda because you didn't know, because you're like, who's this little guy getting in my toolkit here? You're getting in the way. I'm looking for some great Jedi master, you know. And he's like, wars don't make people great, you know. And he's like, that's when Yoda kind of straightens up, and he's very serious. But Yoda, you could see in the prequels when he was teaching the younglings, you could see that kindness and that love in his heart for those younglings when Obi-Wan comes in and he's looking for his lost planet, you know, and all that. So I know people want to forget about the prequels, but I think I like that they still, well, they're ignoring them, but I think you have to, by the time we get to episode 9, I think we have to mention Vader, you know, and they did. They mentioned Sidious. They said Darth Sidious. I was like, yay! Yeah. You know, so that was good to hear. I don't know. I could talk about this forever, and you know.
No, this is why Star Wars is number one. It's the one that we could talk about forever.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately why it lands atop our list. I think there's just so much fodder there that we could talk about.
Right.
And, you know, maybe
now I want to go see it again for the fifth time.
I
Because 544 million domestic is not enough.
No, it's not enough. Yeah. I do need to see it for a second time. So, you know, let's go. We're on our way to the theater right now.
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can. I can't work down the schedule today, but yes, I want to do that again. There's so much more movies. So to finally wrap up our number one movie, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, we want to hear your feedback at Geek Homeworld on Twitter. Let us know what's going on. Check out our YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
You can give us some feedback there.
And here in the coming weeks, you know, leading up to the Oscars, I would love to, and I intend to, you know maybe send out a weekly blog and tell you what great movies there have been this year, what performances, and what you should go rent, see, and get prepared for the Oscars.
I'm all for it. So yeah, I really appreciate your input here. I didn't want to do this alone, and it's always more fun to get a diversified list in that sense, because you did help me hash out some of these, because some of these movies I may or may not have ranked the way I did, but I'm comfortable with it now, so I feel good
it's a
about
good
it.
list.
You know,
it's a good list.
It's a good list, and even though it was a bad year for movies, it was still a good year. It might have been down from where we were, but a couple years ago we had The Force Awakens with like almost making $1 billion. So the tide rose, and
box office isn't everything.
it is not
It's
everything.
like every time I look at my year-end list, I'm like, wow, there's at least 25 to 30 great films, honestly. Like great, that can be put in the, in a time capsule and will last the test of time.
Yeah, will you remember something like Transformers: The Last Night? You won't remember that. Well,
Maybe for how bad it was.
Maybe.
But no, it's like, but yeah, it's...
You'll remember movies like, you might remember movies like it. You'll remember Star Wars,
Yeah.
You should remember Logan. If you don't remember Blade Runner 2049, I'm going to smack you.
Well, you probably haven't seen it.
Yeah, you hadn't seen it. That's what everybody needs to go out and make this a big hit. So wrapping up, please let us know your thoughts and all that. Check us out. And we want to thank you for joining us for our top 10 and worst movies of 2017, our year in review. And we've got so much more to come on the podcast. And thank you, Scott, once again for joining me here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+. Follow and interact with us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on iTunes and leave a review. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.